Welcome everybody to another Village Torah portion session with me, your host, Rabbi Drew, and we are on to this week's Torah portion, which is Tissa, which, and I pointed this out in last year's video for this, which is it is the longest Torah portion in the book of Exodus. So not necessarily the longest Torah portion within the entire Torah, but at least for the book of Exodus. Now, there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in this week's Torah portion, a lot, including Moses getting the 10 commandments, bringing them down. For those interested, last year's Village Torah session, I discussed sort of midrashim on the physical, how the tablets, what they look like, sizing and all that. So that, as a refresher, is what we discussed last year. But so Moses is bringing these down, but there's something else going on at the same time. And there's actually a lot going in this Torah portion. I did mention it's the longest in the book of Exodus. But one thing I wanted to focus on for our session that we have right now is something I think we've heard about before. Moses is, he's on Mount Sinai. He's got the tablets. Wonderful, but not all is well back in the camp with the Bnei Israel. Okay, so there's actually a fair amount of restlessness going on, as it turns out, because they're worried that Moses is no longer living or otherwise unable to continue leading them. So we are focusing on the golden calf. I want to say experience, the whole incident, the golden calf incident, and really, if we want to think about it, if you have chapter 32 of the book of Exodus, that's really what we're going to be looking at. And I will admit, there are even some things that maybe I just hadn't remembered or hadn't really read so closely in the past. Some things jumped out at me even. So we're going to pop over right now to Exodus 32. So we have here, now this is really what sets it all up. What sets it all up is actually the people were nervous. So I'm going to start reading. When the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, the people gathered against Aaron, because Aaron's Moses' brother, and I guess was left really to be in charge. They said to him, "Come, make us a god who shall go before us. For that fellow Moses, the man who brought us from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has happened to him." They're really worried. Clearly, they think he's dead. Maybe for one reason or another, he didn't make it off the mountain, or maybe God killed him, or something of great peril occurred to him. Okay. Aaron said to them, "Well, take off the gold rings that are on the ears of your wives, your sons, and your daughters, and bring them to me." So Aaron is taking a leadership role here. And so he says, "Bring me all the gold, all your jewelry that you're wearing." And all the people took off the gold rings that were in their ears and brought them to Aaron. This he took from them and cast in a mold and made it into a molten calf. And they exclaimed, "This is your God, Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt." One thing I actually want to point out is that the Egyptians, why a calf, right? If we just want to take a step back, why a calf? What's going on? So I think I remember years ago coming across that apparently cows or calves were basically gods for in Egypt. So that was something that was very important to them. And I suspect, and I don't know Egyptology, I don't really know ancient Egypt, but I think what was going on is that cows they offer a lot food wise, whether it's the meat, whether it's the milk, they offer a lot and really provide life. And so I think that was what was going on for Egyptians. And think about where Bnei Israel, think about where the Israelites came from. They came from Egypt. That was their context. That was their cultural context. And that is what they had. But when Aaron saw this, he built an altar before it, and Aaron announced, "Tomorrow shall be a festival for the Lord." So early next day, people woke up early. The people offered up burnt offerings and brought sacrifices of well-being. They sat down to eat, and they drank, and they rose to dance. So it was a very exciting, very merry experience. It seems like, this is what it sounds like. Look, the day before Aaron announced tomorrow's going to be a festival for the Lord, it's going to be a holiday. So what did people do? They didn't just sleep in. No. They woke up early and they brought burnt offerings, they brought well-being offer sacrifices, and they ate, they drank, and they had a great time. This was very exciting for them. They were all in. I don't know why a golden cow would be much better something to celebrate rather than I don't know, the Moses who actually led them out of Egypt. I don't know. Okay, so that's where we're that's where we're at right now. Okay, so the Lord's, so we're gonna, if we're thinking about a movie or a TV show, it sort of shifts scenes, sort of where the camera is. We're gonna move to Mount Sinai, and the Lord spoke to Moses, "Hurry down, for your people, whom you brought out of the land of Egypt, have acted basely. They have been quick to turn aside from the way that I enjoined upon them. They have made themselves a molten calf and bowed low to it and sacrificed to it, saying, 'This is your God, O Israel, who brought you out of the land of Egypt.'" The Lord further said to Moses, "I see that this is a stiff-necked people. Now let me be, that my anger may blaze forth against them, and that I may destroy them and make of you a great nation." God saying, "Moses, you've been really great. You've been incredible. I really want to have you in my corner. This people, I'm done with them. I just want to burn the rest of them. They're gone. This is absurd. They're a molten calf, a golden calf. It's time for me to wipe the slate clean and start fresh." But Moses implored his God, the Lord, saying, "Let not your anger, Lord, blaze forth against your people, whom you delivered from the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand. Let not the Egyptians say it was with evil intent that he delivered them, only to kill them off in the mountains and annihilate them from the face of the earth. God, turn from your blazing anger and renounce the plan to punish your people. Remember your servants, Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, how you swore to them by yourself and said to them, 'I will make your offspring as numerous as the stars of heaven, and I will give to your offspring this whole land of which I spoke to possess forever.'" And the Lord renounced the punishment plan for God's people. It was, it's interesting because Moses uses multiple levels of argument here, which is really interesting. First of all, you already saved them from Egypt, and then not only that, what the Egyptians are going to say? You saved them, but now you're just going to wipe them out. Why? But really, it seems to be the kicker here is, remember, Zachor la'Avraham liYitzchak liYisrael avadecha asher nishpat lehem bach. Okay, remember your servants Abraham, Isaac, and Israel. You swore, God, you swore that you would bring them and their offspring to this land. And that seems Moses is holding God accountable. This accountability that God has to God's own word. I mean, maybe this other stuff, maybe the previous verses were helpful enough of Moses arguing against God, but I really think this is the linchpin, that Moses is holding God accountable to what God had sworn, what God had promised. So the Lord renounced it. Okay. So thereupon Moses turned and went down from the mountain, bearing the 2 tablets of the pact, tablets inscribed on both their surfaces. They were inscribed on the one side and on the other. And as I mentioned, last year's Village Torah, we discussed how the physical, the framework, the layout of the tablets, at least according to Midrashim, to rabbinic narrative expansion, tried to explain how this worked out. Okay, so the tablets were God's work and the writing was God's writing, incised upon the tablets. When Joshua heard the sound of the people in its boisterousness, he said to Moses, "There's a cry of war in the camp." Now, clearly, it seems as if Joshua was somehow attending in one way or another to Moses. Maybe he had traveled a lot of the way up Mount Sinai and sort of stopped, not going all the way with Moses, but to some degree going up, but not being part of the rest of Bnei Israel, rest of the Israelites in the camp with Aaron. Okay, so Moses answered, "It is not the sound of the tune of triumph, nor the sound of the tune of defeat. It is the sound of song I hear." Now, we already saw earlier, they were very happy. They were very excited. They were drinking, they were eating, they were having a whole bunch of merriment. So as soon as Moses came near the camp and saw the calf and the dancing, wow, he became enraged, and he hurled the tablets from his hands and shattered them at the foot of the mountain. He took the calf that they had made and, okay, so this is actually really interesting. And I don't know, and maybe this is something that you've caught before, but this is, for me, something that seemed fairly fresh. So Moses took the calf that they had made and burned it. Okay, I think we're familiar with that, right? It's gold. You can burn gold. He ground it to powder. I'm not clear how that works, and strewed it upon the water, and then made the Israelites drink it. I didn't remember the drinking part. So some of the medieval commentators on this verse try to figure out, how is it that you can burn gold and then ground it to powder? Because that's not how it works. You have sort of this molten golden material, but it doesn't necessarily harden into a powder that you can grind it down. So some of the medieval commentators offer suggestions that maybe there was another maybe another chemical, maybe another substance that was added to the gold, or maybe more specifically, when the gold was being molted down, that then this other substance was added to that made it into something that it could be ground down into powder. Okay, so you have this like golden powdery water, and made the Israelites drink of it. I'm not familiar. I did not remember that. Obviously, it did not just pop up in 2022. It's been around for literally thousands of years. I just did not, I had not caught that before. The thing that this really makes me think about, because we don't have a lot of instances in which, at least not in the Torah, in which someone forces someone else to drink a concoction, makes me think directly of oops, did I mute myself? Okay. This makes me think of one other instance in the Torah in which someone is made to drink a concoction. And that is in the book of Numbers in chapter 5. Now, this is something we can certainly talk about when we get to this particular Torah portion, but it is with regards to the suspected adulteress. So a woman has suspected or been accused of engaging in some sort of cuckoldry against her husband. And one of the things that is to take place is to drink of something. Now, so she's suspected. And here we go in verse 17. The priest shall take sacred water in an earthen vessel, and take some of the earth that is on the floor of the tabernacle. The priest shall put it into the water. After he has made the woman stand before the Lord, the priest shall bear the woman's head and place upon her hands the meal offering of remembrance, which is a meal offering of jealousy. And in the priest's hands shall be the water of bitterness that induces the spell. The priest shall adjure the woman, saying to her, if no other party has lain with you, if you have not gone astray in defilement while living in your husband's household, be immune to harm from this water of bitterness that induces the spell. But if you have, okay, the whole thing is, it's very conditional. So apparently these waters of bitterness, that if she actually engaged in this cuckoldry and this adultering, that she would ultimately die somehow of this concoction. But if she had remained faithful, then she would not. But there is, here it is in verse 23. The priest shall put these curses down in writing and rub it off into the water of bitterness. He is to make the woman drink the water of bitterness that induces the spell, so that the spell inducing water may enter into her to bring on bitterness. So that is what this directly reminded me of. It's an interesting connection of here where they had ground where Moses has ground this molten calf, the golden molten calf, into powder and made the Israelites drink of in water, and made the Israelites drink of it. And actually the connection is quite clear, because for the suspected adulteress, she cheated on her husband. And here the children of Israel have cheated on their God with another God. Now, the difference is that there's no potential that they die after having consumed or drunk this golden powder water concoction. So that is a difference in the consequences, but the process is strikingly similar. Okay, so that was the thing I just had to make mention of because I hadn't remembered that from previous cycles of reading this parasha. Okay, so then we continue. Moses said to Aaron, "What did this people do to you that you have brought such great sin upon them?" Now Moses is bringing this question to Aaron. So far, Moses encountered them because we just really see these two verses, right? He comes to the camp, he's just so enraged, and he hurls the tablets down. He takes the calf, grounds it to powder, puts in the water, makes all the Israelites drink it. That's just two verses. Now there's fallout and there's consequences, and he's going to ask his brother. Moses is now taking to his brother, "You were leading them, you made this." So he says, what did this people do to you that you have brought such great sin upon them? So Aaron said, "Let not my Lord be enraged." Really talking to his brother. "Moses, don't be so upset with me. You know that this people is bent on evil. They said to me, 'Make us a god to lead us.' For that fellow Moses, the man who brought us from the land of Egypt, we do not know what has happened to him. So I said to them, 'Whomever has gold, take it off.' They gave it to me, and I hurled it into the fire, and out came this calf." Moses saw that the people were out of control since Aaron had let them get out of control, so that they were a menace to any who might oppose them. So Aaron is fearful for his life. It's one thing to be a leader, but if you he clearly had to just sort of go with the flow. So Moses stood up in the gate of the camp and said, "Whomever is for the Lord, come here." And all the men of Levi rallied to him. So the Levites, they are one of the tribes. Okay, so one of the tribes rallied to him. He said to them, "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, each of you put sword on thigh, go back and forth from gate to gate throughout the camp, and slay sibling, neighbor, and kin." Oof. The men of Levi did as Moses had bidden, and some 3,000 of the people fell that day. So he doesn't specify it, because it sounds like just go and slay kin, just anybody. But it sounds almost really like, and this is I would describe it as being within, sort of between the lines, as it were, between not really there, but seemingly those who were instigators, some of the leaders of this idolatrous movement, and really against God, against Moses, and really for the golden calf. Go slay them. And even, I think, and this really could have probably is meant to be there, and even your siblings, and even your neighbors, even your kin, the people with whom you are the most close, you have all this emotional connection and relationship, even them. So that's high level of zealousness. So the men of Levi did is, okay, so we mentioned that. Okay, Moses said, "Dedicate yourselves to the Lord this day, for each of you has been against blood relations." Now it seems that he is directing this against those men of the tribe of Levi, that God may just bestow a blessing upon you today. The next day Moses said to the people, "You have been guilty of a great sin, yet I will now go up to the Lord. Perhaps I may win forgiveness for your sin." So Moses went back to the Lord and said, "Alas, this people is guilty of a great sin in making for themselves a god of gold." Yeah, that's pretty huge. "Now, if you will forgive their sin, great. But if not, erase me from the record which you have written. I don't want to be a part of this at all." But the Lord said to Moses, "Only one who has sinned against me will I erase from my record. So go now, lead the people where I told you. See, my messenger shall go before you, but when I make an accounting, I will bring them to account for their sins. I'm going to hold them accountable. There's going to be consequences." Then the Lord sent a plague upon the people for what they did with the calf that Aaron made. Now it's interesting because there's no number attached to that. There's a plague. Clearly, a lot of people died. I would suspect even thousands, but it's not clear how many died. It's just there. People were killed out. There's a lot of death going on here. Well, we have first Levi. So we have the men of Levi slaying 3,000, even close family, relatives, friends, kill them. And then we have this plague that kills innumerable people. And I also wonder, after Moses says, "I don't want to be a part of this. Please remove me. I don't want to have any part of it." But God says, "I'm not going to." Who I'm going to remove? I'm going to remove the people who were particularly problematic in this regard. I don't want them in my book. It's interesting because that's not because we saw that when he asked tribal Levi to kill these people, it doesn't say who, right? 3,000. So not everybody and not a large number within the broader scope of things, but clearly certain people, instigators. I think people who were particularly pro calf, pro golden calf, right? Kill them out. But that wasn't all, right? We even have at the end this plague, and there's not even a number attributed to it. A plague just goes through the people, and it doesn't even say it killed people, but it's hard to imagine that if this is going to be mentioned, that a lot of people were actually killed out through this plague, and probably most likely it would seem from the language used, the people who were particularly involved in and sort of leading the pro golden calf move. So there's a lot going on. So when we think about the golden calf incident, I mean, for me, there are some things that are of particular fascination, and I'm curious to hear from you what really spoke to you or what was of particular interest. But one is Aaron really seems to get off scot-free, certainly vis-a-vis Moses, even though he was really leading everything, but almost maybe not so much leading as sort of directing, right? Because, after Moses confronts Aaron says, look, I don't think I could have continued on with my life, as it were. They probably would have rallied against me, and I really didn't have much of a choice. I just had to comply, really just had to direct them. But I felt bad for Aaron, really. For me, the really fascinating thing I mentioned, and I had a little bit of a focus attention on, is taking what happens with the golden calf itself. It's not like it's all repurposed. No, the gold isn't repurposed. It's melted down, ground down, put in water, and Israelites are drinking it. So it's fascinating because the golden calf never gets reused, right? It's ingested, it's consumed. The Israelites are consuming it. I don't know what happens after that, but that's a little bit unexpected. It's consumed, and the gold is not repurposed. This is actually, it's very different as opposed to, and I know again, much later, but in the book of Numbers with Korach's rebellion, there are all these fire pans that are used for holy purposes. And after the Korach's rebellion is put down, they are repurposed, those fire pans. They are reused. But here, the golden calf is not reused. It's consumed and ingested by the Bnei Israel, by the Israelites. And then we have this fallout where the tribe of Levi steps up. They're sort of the enforcers. They slay even kin, but apparently they're probably taking out the sort of the worst offenders, the worst leaders of the pro golden calf movement. And then ultimately there's this plague that not really sure who it kills out or if it even kills anybody, but a plague that sort of finishes off this entire incident. So those are some thoughts, some musings, some I just wanted to go through the golden calf incident. Debbie, do you have any questions? Do you have any thoughts? Do you have any comments? Do you have queries?
What I really enjoyed, and I've always wondered about, is the golden calf.
Oh, yeah.
And all about it. And I did not realize that Aaron tried to grind it down and then make the people drink the powder.
That was Moses. That was Moses.
Moses.
Yeah. I hadn't remembered that either. So,
well, what's amazing to me is that I don't believe there's any way you can grind it down that fine and then drink it, even if you put something with it.
Oh, okay.
So I wonder if that is a metaphor for drinking something else, because the whole idea is you created something sinful, and therefore I assume you're drinking part of what was ground down or what was sinful to purify yourself for your sinful acts.
Interesting.
I don't know. What do you think?
So I don't know about the symbolic aspect. I honestly really don't know. Although I do, you know what? I'm gonna go to a source. We have Ramban, so Rabbi Moses, son of Nachman, and he was a medieval commentator. But he says it is possible that gold burnt in fire does not melt, but instead, when placed therein, is charred and can be ground to powder, as someone else had written. Um, and maybe it floated and made them drink of it while it's on the water, or maybe it scattered upon the stream in small quantities and then drew the water and made them drink it before the gold powder sank in the stream, or maybe it was a miraculous event.
Yeah.
This is interesting, though. He says, thus he wanted to disgrace their deeds by grinding their God to powder and bringing it into their bellies to issue as excrement. And then, and then this is what I mentioned earlier. In the opinion of our rabbis, he also intended to put them to the test in the same way that faithless wives were tried, which is what I mentioned earlier about their bellies. So, even in the medieval ages, they're trying to wrestle with how does this exactly work? Because that's not normally how gold interacts.
Yeah. Right.
So this, I don't know the exact workings of it. Clearly, in the Middle Ages, they were trying to figure out how does this work. Yeah, or maybe, who knows? Maybe they melted it, and then while melting it, it went into the water, so it would be then maybe, I don't know. I don't really.
I don't know either.
Yeah,
but I thought it was very interesting,
well,
and I enjoyed your explanation.
Thank you. I
very
appreciate
much.
that.
It was detailed, and it made sense.
Thank you.
It really did.
And it's it's a famous incident. I think even people who may not be so familiar with everything going on in the Torah or in the Bible, but it's something that people know. It's something that we all know, and yet there's still fresh things to be drawn from the story.
That's exactly right.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Before you go, I just want to acknowledge that all Jewish life and programming here at Cedar Village are thanks to the financial support of Jewish Home of Cincinnati. So thank you so much. And with that, thank you all, and Shabbat Shalom.